This is what we call a preface to a story. Um, I sort of aired out my laundry because I got to dump it. And sometimes I do it privately and where I go and I don't say anything to anybody, even though everything I'm connected to. When you realize how a server works and being able to get it. And because I've been having to deal with this ever since I was a child because I run at hyperspeed, which is hypersensitivity. So I realized that the last thing that I want to be held captive to is to run anything through the server, if you will, that represents anything less than eternal love, because that's what I am that goes on forever, gifting electrons at the highest accelerated rate of speed. So I'm an accelerator, I'm not an inverter. I don't hold on to one electron. Okay, that's a scale measurement of your own learning. Okay, so therefore, when I experience all the things that I experience, everyone else that's conscious and aware of themselves, communicating through software, and I become aware of what they become aware of, I've got to transmute all that stuff. Okay, remember transmutation machine, polarity integration. And because of my sensitivity, I have to be very careful when I choose to either air publicly or go other places and just get rid of it. In this particular case, I got rid of it. I call it airing out your dirty laundry. So I did it in a public way this morning on something I just recorded. Okay? So what I do here is that this is not information, if you will, because of how sensitive I am, and then the perception of how others are going to experience what it means. It is not directed at anybody. Okay? It means I'm simply putting it out. It's like, give it back to the universe. Give it back to the one, right? I'm returning back to the one. Experience what love is in your heart. So I have to let it go. Sometimes I let it go by going out and putting my bare feet on the rock and just let it go and give it to the universe and say, I love you all, I love you all, I love you all, I love you all forever. I'm gifting you pink roses. Look directly at the sun. That's how I normally do it. When I experience a lot of stuff, in other words, when I translocate through a field of consciousness that has fallen, then I realize I'm running their programs. And I don't want to run their programs because I'm an eternal engine, okay? Which means I'm experiencing eternal energy spheres that are creating energy spheres as we go, right? I'm not supposed to experience what I'm experiencing here. So when you know that as a child and you realize why you're here, by virtue of what you knew before you came in here, you realize you're on a mission and you're connected to other folks that are performing missions. Now you're into the security side of things. But what it means, I've mentioned in previous videos, I feel everything that's felt on this planet as a living organism. Breathers. Everything that is alive and breathing. From the smallest cell to the biggest cells. From a tree to mama. Everything that's here, the entire planetary motherboard. In fact, you can scale it up to a galaxy and a universe and anywhere we go. Right? So sometimes I let go of things because when I was a child and growing up, and I was experiencing being on fire to give love energy away, and I realized I'm experiencing so many others that are not experiencing what that is. I realized that being in a fallen system in which you're experiencing an increase or an acceleration of black goo, folks that are experiencing, if you will, being cut off from an emotional connection with their soul, and they're not experiencing that, their energy is what I call being flat. Their energy is flat. That's a map read of somebody's consciousness. That's a map read of a planetary consciousness on a multidimensional level, okay, of how much goo, right, the resin has to get burned off, which is a measurement of density, which means you want to experience no density and more light. For me, zero density, okay, because of the work that I do. Okay, and so therefore anything that I experience that is in resistant mode, then I realize why the resistance is there is because of the time and density. But I'm measuring, if you will, how many units of consciousness are here, which is represented by energy, of what's held in the planetary memory banks is represented by miasma, trauma, okay, as a result of wars that have been going on for a long, long, long time. Which means we have access to the records. And the way that I measure it is resistance. Okay, between the density levels and the dimensions of the way that the original Universal Galactic template was set up, which means we have memory of the original universal and galactic template. And what we're experiencing within that template now, as every circuit is opening and closing, how much eternal love energy are we experiencing through the entire Cathar grid template? That's a guardian measurement, because we're connected to other guardians, right, that are letting us know, because we're the ones that are running the servers. The energy of the oversoul consciousness that is connected to other souls that are making it happen. That's the energy of consciousness that is spinning. The Merkabahs, the vortex, the spin ratio, the harmonic ratio. Are those waves, are those plasma waves, right, in balance? Are we experiencing being in an equal state of balance, which is zero, which is non-polarized consciousness? Now you're experiencing the one, or non-polarized consciousness. Now you know one from the other. And so I call it airing out dirty laundry by virtue of what I experienced to others, okay? That, if you will, because I'm hypersensitive, right, is like change the channel. So I end up having to snooze folks, okay? Even at the, how would I put this? There are folks that run software, okay, just like we're all running software, right? That push things through the grid that I don't want to experience, okay, because it's fear-based. It's that simple. So when I'm experiencing fear-based algorithms, okay, the mathematical language of those frequencies is represented by that experience. I don't want to experience that. So why am I experiencing you? Because that's what you're pushing, right? Which means that's information. That's intelligence signals. That's a signal intelligence of consciousness that is producing the visual, mathematical, geometrical, GUI interface. I don't want to experience that. Then turn it off. So this is no different when I was a little kid. I'm watching the TV. I'm looking at the TV screen just like you're looking at a screen when you're up on YouTube or Rumble or any other channel. Now you're experiencing what they're experiencing. You want to experience that. Okay? That's not what love is. Because you can translate the map that they're running, which is the template that they're running with their soul consciousness or no soul consciousness. So now we're back in a chat bots, or if you will, something that doesn't have a soul is communicating with you through a dead energy platform. All right? And that's a torque speed differential between one and the other. I know, Mama. So I'm letting it go. And so I let it all go, right? Just put it out, just vaporize it, put it into the ethers. Let it spin that vortex and get rid of it. Transmute it through the one. Don't let it through the firewall. Burn it off. It's information that's related to the stuff they want us to experience. You have a choice, a free will choice, and what you want to experience. Remember, we're back to zero. Right? Experiencing what love is. That's what we experience is absolute love, the songs of Lyra. Right? The innocence of a pure heart, which is pure energy, which is pure love. Now you're experiencing the one. Now you know one from the other. Now you're experiencing being one with all creation. Now you're experiencing being loved. And we share that love with others. So that's what we communicate is absolute love. You see how that works? When we're communicating absolute love, then others that are receiving that signal are experiencing absolute love in us. That's what the law is. Okay? I know, violations everywhere. I was running them all up everywhere I went from the time I was a little kid, and I lost count, okay, of how many crimes are being committed throughout this Universal Galactic template. That's pretty easy to do, actually. You know what I'm saying? When you're connected to the one is informing you of how many violations of love is the law there is in the entire Universal Galactic template. As a result of what? Control. Races that want control over the gates. Right? They can't let go. They cannot take that leash off. Okay? They want to control and be attached to another unit of consciousness because that other unit of consciousness is energy that it uses to run itself. That's an inverter. Right? That's exactly what it is. It's like attaching itself to a cell. I need your energy because it's artificial life. Right? Because artificial light is artificial life, which means it's finite. So when you have something that is finite and that's dead energy that's feeding on something that's living, that's against the law. So I've stood my rod and staff in here, right? Anchored to mamas and say, that's against the law. That's against the law. That's against the law. That means you know what's the law and what is not the law. That's knowing one from the other. Okay, so I don't budge on that, and I've never budged on that since I was 4 years of age. So that's why your future's up to you, and my future's up to me, so I don't impose my will on your future. Right? So it is all about learning. It is all about coursework, and it is the rate at which you're learning is based on the speed at which you're vibrating, or the accretion levels of how much energy you can actually hold in an avatar down here at this level of creation. Right? Without bursting into a star. Right? An eternal star. Right? I know. Anyway, I'll put this one up first as the first one, but the one that's number 2, I'll put it up as number 1 and number 2. So that this is like one of those warning buttons when they come up with the films. This is restricted to PG, right? R restricted, which means this is not suitable material for those that are sensitive to somebody who's expressing their truth based on what I've experienced by being connected to others. What I experience through them, I experience in me. I don't want to experience that. So I air things out a lot, okay? Because you're connected to a motherboard, which is a communication system, right? And why I was, and this is actually part of the reason why I was sent a signal from Mama to get rid of the phone, okay? Which, and you can see why. And you'll see why in the next video, okay? Because of how I react to that, because of how sensitive I am, because of what others are experiencing and that's communicating with me, right? That produces the resistance or keeps triggering the memories of what's held in people's memory, then instead of raising their spirit, okay? This is something that is communicated to somebody, okay, through a server, right, that they become aware of. And that information that they become aware of, that does what? Prevents them from experiencing the one. And why is that important? Because the negative Metatronic reversal wants that information to be, which means that it is as crazy as this may sound to some folks. If you don't understand how this works, I'll explain it to you, because I do know how this works. It's wanting when you have something it's like a vampire, okay, chasing the artist, an inverter. Then the more information that's being communicated and translated that allows for this unit of energy, if you will, the vampire, something that is a dead energy AI, that allows it to be able to feed on the lower vibrational stuff by virtue of those that are communicating what is translated through a server that is represented by lower frequencies and vibration, and what's held in memory that triggers those negative magnetic reaction states. Then the counter move that an AI makes to maintain its spiral, to pull energy off the other one, which is ours, okay, they're actually working for the Metatronic reversal spiral without being aware of it, by pushing fear or negative-based information, which is a negative magnetic polarity reaction state, which means they're actually working against their own self-interest, okay, and aren't aware of it, and actually believe that they are working in everybody's best interest by the intelligence that they're sending that's already happened. Because if you want to experience something that is in real time happening right now, then it's what you're experiencing right now when you're connected to the one, which is what love is. Now, I realize some of you can translate that. Others won't be able to translate that. In the way that time and density and information works that we're experiencing through a GUI mirror. Because at the end of the day, your free will is up to you, what you choose to want to experience in your mirror. So there's a difference in mirrors. A black mirror, right? And the mirror that I run with the sun. Mirror in the sky. Big difference in mirrors. Big difference in communication, mirrors. Right? When you're plugged into an eternal star, big difference in mirrors. So with that, I will share the next video that gives me allow to air it all out. Okay. So from from having allowed myself to be programmed the English language, and we use these little terms that sort of emphasize it, like adjectives, or if you will, the emotional energy side of things. Then I would say that what I do sometimes, if you want to translate it, and it's supposed to always be what love is, and it's always what love is, but there is a language that some people understand by virtue of how I experience the emphasis of the communication. And there used to be an old statement that I grew up with called "I pull no punches." Okay, which means I'll put it in your face. Now, this is where you get into when I was in Alcoholics Anonymous, step 11, step 11, restored your spirit. That's called a reset. Now you're back experiencing the eternal spirit of fire. You don't ever want to say anything that's going to cause anybody any harm because of how sensitive you are. So now you're back to, do I tell them the truth of what I'm aware of? Out of the fear that it's going to lower their vibration or their frequency because you're so sensitive of what they're going to experience, because you already know that if you communicate it this way, that's going to do that. But then again, I don't have any control over your magnetic reaction state because that's chemistry, that's biochemistry. Those are the messengers of what you're going to experience by virtue of what I communicate to you. Now I have to decide whether I want to even communicate it, even though I'm aware of it. So when you have guardian level awareness, now I have to decide on whether I want to communicate it by your reaction state. Well, what if I already know your reaction state? It depends on where you're at by the level of the operating level you operate with your soul consciousness. Whether you can deflect it. You know what deflect is, right? That's a shield. That's a firewall. Which means, yeah, I realize you're aware of that. I don't want to experience that because my firewall is going to burn it off. Which means I go on to experiencing something different than what that is. It's like a reboot, experiencing that love vibration again, because the communication wasn't what love is. Right? Because when I was a child, I realized I was absorbing and accreting, if you will, or I'm like a sponge as a polarity integrator, which means I'm taking on an enormous amount of negative energy, goo energy, on a planetary level. And that's no joke. A transmutation machine as a polarity integrator oversoul has to burn off all that goo. You realize how much that is on a planetary level, how much black goo there is in this planet? Okay? That's the binary stuff. Okay? So when I'm experiencing all the binary stuff that other folks are running, I got to burn that stuff off. So scale it into the grid. It's the ability to burn off goo. So fortunately, ran into another lady that knows how to do this. Face to face, eyes to eyes, and that was Leia Akanaka Maole, Lemurian light. Another guardian, the job that she's doing, and bless your heart, Leia, wherever you are. I guess she's in New Zealand. So I'm going to let her rip, as we say, let her rip. I'm just going to let it rip into the public domain and put it out there, because a lot of times when I was a child, I had to deal with an enormous amount of anger because of what they were doing to mama. Okay? I've explained this once before. It's like somebody going into your mother's flower garden. Intruders. And then when you issue an edict that you're going to go after the founder races, that's no different than say you're going to war against the one. Okay? And so you're going to war against love. And that's how I experience it here, because that's exactly what it is. They're going to war against their own mirror. Right? So now you know what a black mirror is. Okay? Which means fracture after fracture after fracture after fracture after fracture, by virtue of the free will use of their own energy to experience what that is, which is dead light. Right? So now you're not experiencing any love anymore because you don't have a soul. Right? So how many souls you want to throw into this? Right? Right? You just keep getting siphoned off and siphoned off and siphoned off and siphoned off. Just keep throwing souls in there. At some point in time, we're going to speed this thing up before it finally implodes. Because it does have everything to do with accretion levels. If the vampire is able to increase its acceleration at a higher rate of speed, than the speed at which we're running, which is eternity, right? So you already know they've already lost. But it's how many go down with it. How many souls we're losing.